My name is Paul Seafood Boggy Brighton, and welcome to The Way of Conscious Mindfulness, a show about mind, body, and spirit, a blend of science and spirituality, and with a Taoist flavour. Tao means the way, the path, the balance.
Spirit.
So each week,
of science and spirituality, and
somebody
Taoist flavour.
like
Tao means the way, the path.
I can hear backbench.
Of science and spirituality.
I think it's Matt. I think Matt, if you're playing it.
Yeah, Matt. Brilliant. Thanks, Matt.
I am? Where? Oh,
Each week,
okay.
we will go through the flow
Got
and a little bit of backbeat, and we will find the Tao, the way, the path of each guest. And this week we have the very gracious, the very wonderful, one of my good friends, Chi brothers and Sifus, Matt Brightside Evans. Matt is many things, which I'm sure he'll tell you himself. Those who know Matt know what a great Sifu muse or teacher he is. He does many different things. One of the great things he does is D-Jedi Qigong, which we'll talk about later. He is both a scientist, or has a science nature as well as a spiritual nature. With me, I also have the gracious, the wonderful, the great Ethan Collins as co-hosting, and the lovely Michelle, who's driving along very safely.
Yes.
Yep. And so these are the co-hosts. This is the wonderful guest, and it's time to start this crazy roundabout that we call the the Side Evans. So welcome, Matt. How you doing, my dear brother?
I'm doing awesome. It's amazing to be here. My life hasn't been any better, and I was told it would start at 50, so I guess I'm 1 year old now. So, so if I'm 1 year old in this new, beautiful, incredible life, well, at least I got more of a manual this time, because last time I didn't get a manual before I started.
That's a good point. That's very true.
We should hand this out. Whoever's writing this down needs to hand it out to someone at birth. This is how it works.
Yeah.
Totally. I want a copy of the script.
Actually had a conversation about that. Yep. Making manuals.
Yeah.
Lemurian manuals.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, those might not do us any good because that was just a couple of years ago. You might
Yeah.
want to call them Earth or today's manuals, because sometimes if we try to transcribe that tradition to today, it sometimes doesn't.
I hear you. But the wisdom of that time, but how it works now, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not like a download. That wisdom of then, you want to upload to now. You know, it's like some people say about, oh, now these are just like like the hippies. Well, actually, no. The energy I get, they're more advanced. They're getting a little bit more. They're a little bit more, open, a little bit more. Some people back in the 60s. It's moving it along. It's like, yeah, peace and love is good, but you've got to be balanced. Yeah, you've got to have an open heart. And one of the things I learned in India was been once, and went to India, met these yogis. They were really funny, really cool. One of the few times I saw my teacher laugh, and but they had a fighting form. They had a stick fighting form, and it was like, well, but I thought yoga and Buddhism is all about peace and love, and so it is. But if we get attacked by bandits, I have to defend myself. And it's so there is a balance. There's a balance between. I can't see where I put it. There's a balance between the yin and the yang. You've got to have that flow. But anyway, enough about me. So Matt, Matt, what do you do?
Well, I'm a network engineer as trade, but that's how I make my money, because I learned that I wasn't good at selling what has been gifted to me in Qigong and the energy and to be able to live life. What I've been, I am one of the founders of Universal Heroes and the Jedi training. I am one of the founders of that form, which is a form of Qigong and strength training. It's really more of a mixture. Main reason why is because Qigong is what heals the inner being. That is the Jing of the body. When you're moving the Qi correctly, then you can do strength training. If you're not moving the Qi correctly, strength training is almost a waste. I won't say it's a waste, but it creates too much cortisol. It creates too much of a death drug in you when it's not
it
done.
can actually be damaging to you. I've had the experience of overtraining between martial arts and my training exercises and working late nights, and damaged my body severely, actually, from overtraining. And not doing, I didn't do Qigong at the time, too. So I have since corrected that, and I'm just telling you, you can mess yourself up by overtraining. I've done it. I've got the injuries for it.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. Not even someone that does strength training, it's not the right form. You're going to harm yourself.
Absolutely.
If the energy's not right, you're going to harm yourself. Like I try to tell people, don't work out at noon. Noon's just not a good time to work out. Because at noon, that's when the Qi is high. That's when you're gathering all that Qi, and you can actually burn out. If you're going to do a 15-minute, sure, noon's fine. But if you're going to actually do a full workout, that's not noon. That's morning or evening.
Well, I totally agree with that. Yeah. It feels so much cleaner to work out in the morning for me. If I do strength training, like you're right, in the middle of the day, it's weird. It feels very odd. It feels like you're forcing.
It's too much yang. I mean, for me, the Taoists were these spiritual scientists. You know, they understood that, you know, the nature is energy, spirit, but energy is vibration, and the vibration had physics. The vibration had cause and effect. So therefore, they understood things. The whole thing with the Tai Chi symbol, it's actually telling you so much. The years of meditation I've done just on the symbol alone, and the things I've seen through that symbol. And Matt, we've talked about this, and Ethan, we talked about this. But yeah, daytime, especially noon, very yang, too yang. So for most training, it's too much. It's you know, this is why in you know, especially in America and especially Britain, you just get wet a lot. But in America and China, it's very humid, too humid. And you can train all through noon. Most of British summertime lasts about 2 weeks of sun, and then it's mainly rain. So you can train. You'll be soaked. Your Qi will be fine. It's wet yang. It's not dry yang. It's wet yang. But anyway, I digress. But dawn and dusk, there's a big whole thing in Qigong and that stuff with dawn and dusk, isn't there, Matt?
Yes, when I did some of my research, the Qigong research, I actually was going into the science of, in the morning when the leaves are opening up and getting their sun for the first time, they actually put off a deeper and more oxygen. So the area actually has more oxygen, especially when you're in nature, in the morning. In the evening, it's depleted. So in the evening, you are going to release it. So if you're doing Qigong to release or to shed what doesn't serve you, that would be done in the evening. But if you're building strength or doing a practice, that would be in the morning because you're going to get more oxygen. Also, that sunlight that you get from the early morning is a red spectrum. That is very, very good for the muscles, for the Jing. In the evening, you have the blue. That is very, very, very good for the mind, for the heart, and for what I call the emotions, which is energy in motion. Emotions are not what feelings are. Feelings are what our mental construct of that energy. Emotions is the Qi, energy in motion. It is what moves between each one of us. And that's how I look at emotions are an energy. Feelings are a mental construct of that energy.
I wholeheartedly agree. That's awesome, and I would like to say that it's really fascinating about the time, because I'm familiar with the presence of twilight and sunset, of the twilight times being the magical times, and it's easy to see between the veils. And I know that there's more, I think, negative ions in the air, which which are conducive to transmitting your brain waves, which is why natives pray in the morning traditionally, and it's my understanding. But the thing about the Qigong is really, really interesting for me, because for a while, I've been doing consistent practice of about 45 minutes for about a year and a half now. I've known it for years, but I've actually been consistent daily for about a year. And when I first started, I was doing it first thing in the morning, and I look at my life at that time, and I see how the Qi was affecting my life, and now I'm doing it at about 8 or 9 at night, because that's when I get off work, and that's just when my day has started. And it's a profound difference in the energy that I'm gathering, and I hadn't really thought about it or noticed it until you said that. So thank you. That is awesome.
So if you're getting rid of the traumas, keep it in the evening.
Totally. Well,
that's what you're doing it for.
Totally.
Because quickly adding, there's the whole Taoist trait of doing more moving data. Dawn, you do the more moving Qigongs, the more slightly faster, slightly more rigorous Qigongs in the morning to wake and activate the energies. And then the dusk is about settling down, so doing more of the Zhanzhong, standing state or stand like a tree Qigongs, the stillness Qigongs or meditation, more in the evening. So it's this, I remember, obviously, because I didn't go to Thailand, but I remember very much having these conversations with all of you, and with Andrew, he didn't want too much of the tech speak, because he wanted to keep it pure. That he didn't want it to be clouded by too much of these qigong words and whatnot. But it's this understanding that there are certain points all through the day and all through the night that are better for certain things, and it doesn't mean it's wrong to do that at a certain time, because if that's the best time for you to do, if 8 o'clock at night is the best time for you to do vigorous qigong, then do it. But the whole thing of adapting is the key, and knowing the nature. As a scientist, if you understand the principles of nature, as a spiritual scientist, if you understand the principles of the universe or the Tao of the three ones, the 5 elements, then going on to the 5 spirits, which is the meridians, the chakras, the auras, the Merkaba, and the Tiridial field. The more of this sort of stuff you learn, the 10,000 things, the more you can understand, right, okay, so I could do this and this, or I could do this and this, but then, at the end of the day, you still go back to just being a child. Just go with the flow, play and enjoy it, but take responsibility. Does that make sense to you, Matt?
Oh yeah, that's very much it, because, again, it's a play. If you take, there is a disease in this world, it's called seriousness. Seriousness. And we have it seriously. So many times, yes, we are to take things seriously, because it's just like yoga, qigong, tai chi, kung fu. You learn a form, do it right, do it perfect, and then lose your form. No form. Now do form again. So squeeze and release program. You squeeze first, and then you say, this is right, this is right, this is right, and then someone comes along going, no, it didn't. That's wrong. Okay. So isn't that way life is? So it's going to just be a mirror of our life. So it's a squeeze and release program is what I call it.
I totally feel the same way. I feel like the universe teaches me through duality, and I like learn a lesson, and I learn through a series of events where it's apply that lesson, and then it contradicts itself and tells you where that rule is not, and then you have to learn the balance, the discernment between what is appropriate. Still haven't gotten the hang of it exactly, but it's like a dance of knowing. But yeah, I'm learning through polarities all the time. And just to share with you guys something, I'm passing windmills, like a whole thing of windmills that I've seen for the first time in my life. I've never seen windmills like this. They're the white ones with the 3 things, and there's like 20 of them along the side of the road.
That's
Very
cool.
interesting. Yeah, beautiful.
I know some Qigongs about that, windmill Qigongs, but it's awesome, yeah. So, cool. Right, okay. Flow with the wind, Michelle. Flow with the wind. As a breeze. Oh, I'm a radio voice at the moment. My picture's gone. Okay. So Matt, please continue. What is the Universal Heroes Qigong? What is that? Explain that a little bit.
Well, the Universal Heroes Qigong consisted of the immortal form, which was seven forms specifically for the organs, and at the same time it was a learning of the Jing Qi Shen of movement, understanding that the Jing is the blood, the physicality, the how. The Qi would be the heart, the energy within. That's going to be the emotions, the energy in motion. And then the Shen, being the spiritual, connecting out. So every movement has that. And in the Jedi or immortal form Qigong, it was and is a medical form. Many of the forms were not strictly created by us. They were taken from the medical forms, put together as this system. And then you would literally go from there to a strength training, which is very similar to, you may have heard of circular strength training, where it's only using your body, but you're stretching all the meridians, and it's a lot of fascial work, but it's very quick and fast, so you work with the fast Qi. And then you drop back into your Qigong, sinking that energy in. With breath being very much part of it. When I show instructors how to teach Qigong, it's always movement, breath, and then describe the energy. And that's exactly how Qigong works. It's movement, breath. What's the energy doing? I'm a permaculture design specialist and trainer. The first law of permaculture is observe and interact. That's the first law of life. If you're not observing, what are you doing?
Being an American?
You've got a good point. You've got a good point. We've been taught that you're just distracted if you're an American, right?
Oh, yeah. We're good at inventing new distractions. Pokemon Go as my
my gosh.
My example.
Yes, let's walk off a cliff.
Yeah.
That's already happened.
Yes.
Me and Michelle was in stereo then. Yes, she said the same. Yes, it has happened. A couple of people crashed. But
natural selection has begun at last. We can't outsmart it forever. We finally worked our way back into it. We found other ways of avoiding it. But no, Pokemon Go back. And selfies. There was like over 20 selfie-related deaths last year. People taking pictures of themselves and like being hit by things or falling off of things or terrible things happening to them because they were too distracted by taking a picture of themselves. Died from vanity. So, the natural selection is kicking up again. I'm excited about it.
Selfie-related deaths.
Yeah, selfie. I like that. Selfie-related death. Stop stuffing people out. Stop it, even. No, but right. For some of the audience, I mean, yes, this whole thing in Qigong, there's different, as in everything, there is different types of Qigong. There is very much, and it's been very much focused on in America, and I'm aware. There's very much the medical Qigong very much for health, but there is also, there is the spiritual side, there is even Qigong's the martial side, but it's this understanding. I've seen this in Matt, I've heard this in Ethan. There's not all Qigong practitioners, all Tai Chi practitioners tend to balance between Qi Jing and Shen. One of the biggest things that all three of you know, and people who know me know, that I always put love, Qi, and Shen at the end of pretty much everything. And the love is Jing, but just to clarify, I say love rather than Jing, because there are different shades of Jing, but the Jing is everything from compassion to passion. It's everything from sexuality to emotional, unconditional love, spirituality. The yin and the yang. Everything has a yin and the yang. But a lot of people don't say that. Yeah, in the qigong, yes, there is this big thing. This almost, I like to put it as almost scientific, about understanding the different meridians, the different sides of the body. Now, I studied also the 5 spirits. Now, I heard about this from my teachers. Also heard about this when I went to Thailand. Heard about this when I went to China, to India, and especially in Tibet. They talk about, in China, it's called the 5 spirit horses. The 5 spirits are the meridians, the chakras, the auras, the Merkaba, the pteridal field, and there's a sixth. And the sixth is the dantians, which are now settled in the Chinese system, the cinnabar field, or they're basically any cells. Now, the dantians bind all 5 together. Now, the ancient knowledge said that once there was one civilization that knew that all of these systems were part of the human consciousness. Well, all consciousness, everything in the life is conscious, is spirit. I don't like using the word soul, because when you translate the word soul, it actually says body and breath. But it's more than that. The energy is conscious. In quantum physics, there are certain scientists that have actually looked at particles, and they believe that quarks are part of an atom. Quarks have what was their phrasing? It appears that quarks have a consciousness about them. They appear to be conscious. There's hey, what the? And you go in depth into quantum physics, and they start talking about everything's interconnected. You can pull an atom apart, take one half the atom 4 miles one way, one half 4 miles the other. You agitate one side, and the other part of the atom 8 miles away actually reacts. And not only does it react, but it actually reacts before you even agitate it. So it knows it's going to happen. And,
I love that.
Yeah, and that's what I love about...
When you catch something, if your brain doesn't have time to tell your body to move. To catch something, if you drop something and you can catch it, your body has moved before your brain registers that you've dropped something.
Yep, very much so.
The message to move has already been sent.
Your conscious mind.
Yeah.
Your conscious mind, I should say, not your body, of course.
Yeah.
I would say your subconscious mind handles 30,000 things at a time. My conscious mind can handle 6, and I'm done. Maybe 8.
See, that goes into psychology and all that, and NLP. Because this is why I've studied all this stuff. Because people say, "Oh, you studied so much." It's no. It's if you truly want to understand, study these different things. Study how, in martial arts I was taught, learn about anatomy and physiology, learn how the body works, learn how all the different systems work, learn about how the mind works, learn all these different things. Understand, I love this now, because we're at a point where science is starting to flow alongside ancient knowledge. Because 50 years ago, 100 years ago, you'd have scientists say, no, that can't be proven, da-da-da-da. In the last 20 years, you had one, please forgive me if I think he was Russian, the Krillian camera that saw the auras. First that came up. Then about 10, 15 years ago, there's a couple of another Russians, actually found, they created a camera that can actually see the meridians. They called them if I remember right, it was biometric.
Bioenergetic?
The bioenergy fields. And the great thing about that story is that when they did the conference, there was a group of Qigong teachers, well, doctors and Qigong teachers, and they were saying, oh yes, we found these fields and they're in these points, and they're showing all these charts on the body. And one of the doctors stood up and said, oh, you mean like this? And they showed the Chinese chart, the old meridians, and going, oh, you mean here? Oh, look,
We've had it for 3,000 years.
Exactly. But the whole point is science is, dare I say it, science is catching up.
Exoscience. Exoscience. Endoscience has been already caught up for a while. It's called Taoism.
Yeah. Well, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is basically a more Western version of Taoist life coaching. And the whole point of the NLP is to further up the ladder, up the structure. It becomes, they say it themselves, it becomes more and more spiritual, or what they use the word spiritual. For me, it's just oneness. You get closer to the Tao, you become more one. And that's why I love now. We're getting to it. Yep, we still got a lot of people asleep. But when people say, energy healing, that's faith healing, you have to believe in it to work. Okay, do you know anything about placebos? 90% of placebos work because the patient believes they are taking the real thing. The patient believes they are taking the real thing, so 90%, and you have to do, in medical case studies, they have to do placebos all the time because it's part of, so every batch of a new medicine that comes along, there's always placebos, and they analyse the placebo effects. So it's a constant stream of data, and 90% placebos work. So hold up, you're saying that because you believe it, it works. So when people say, I don't believe that, well, what you believe is true. You don't believe it, so it's true for you.
Yes.
The whole thing, they've done the case studies. I know Matt knows about this, and Ethan, I think Michelle. One of the case studies they did, they got 1,000 spiritual people, meditation experts, put them in Washington State for a weekend, got them to focus on peace and love and tranquility, and the crime rate dropped by 25%. I repeat, the crime rate dropped by 25%. There is no other explanation, no other reason, and people are, oh wow. I always say the more interesting thing is not the fact that happens, because I know that happens. I know that's possible. That's the whole point of coming together with positive people. You make positive things happen. That's the whole point of the show. But it's the fact the FBI knows this as well, and that wasn't their first experiment. They've done many before that. So what did they know? What are they looking at to be there? But anyway, I've gone on for too long. So so we talked about the universal heroes. So I know, but I'm being a child. What is this D-Jedi Qigong? What?
Well, the difference in the Jedi.
That.
The Jedi comes from an ancient Egyptian study. I won't say it's it, but a Jedi is a pillar of society. It is a person or a group of people that bring the hidden forward. They share the hidden. They share what is unknown with the public, with the community. And that's what we are right now, is in a time that we take these ancient technologies, bring them forward, reintroduce them to people in a different frame, because we do have the scientific proof of what's going on. We do have not just anecdotal evidence, but I'm saying experiential evidence. I'm one of those that I don't take it out of a book. I have to try it. I have to do it. If I do not do it, I can't teach it.
I find this funny. People don't. That's how it should be. Everybody should be experimenting themselves. In energy. In this is. Somebody says, "Oh, that tastes really good." Well, I don't know until I try it. You know, no offense. It may taste really good to you, but I don't know if it's really good to me. You know, because we're all different. So you can't say, "Oh, I don't like this," if you haven't tried it. And you should, as my two main teachers were Sifu Shun and Sifu Po. They were both brothers. And Po would say, "You have to try something 3 times, honestly and wholeheartedly, before you can say you don't like it."
Okay, I'm
to
American.
try
I'll
it 3
do it 4 times.
Yeah. It's all good. But yes, so the Jedi, the D-Jedi, the pillar of light. So in Star Wars, this is the ironic, like, there's a whole thing of this. George Lucas actually used the word D-Jedi, and the Jedi, their favourite tool is the lightsaber, which is a pillar of light. So
And
make
funny
of
thing
that.
is what we brought into the Jedi was the 1 through 10 meditation from ancient Qigong. You may know it as that. What almost every Chinese doctor today does, the 1 through 10 meditation, or it's known as the Pillar of Light.
Yeah.
That is a 3,500 year old meditation. And what it does is it brings in a pillar of light. And that's the funny thing is even George Lucas knew about the 1 through 10 meditation. A lot of Star Wars, if you actually do the research of what he did in his research, it was back to Egypt and then back to the Tao.
Yeah.
It was a Tai Chi master, was one of his main choreographers and main story consultants. So understanding that when I speak of the Jedi, I am again bringing forward ancient technologies that have been part of our human experience. And before we were going through what I would call our physical incarnation, we were still coming into our physical form. We are now in our mind. So we are incarnating in our mind as the human race. So now it is time for us to bring those technologies forward again to learn it in a different way.
Can you go over that again? Because I feel like I almost wrapped my brain around what you just said. Yeah.
Well, in the time of the Tao, in the time of the ancients, we were incarnating as a race into our physical form. That's the age of man. If you take the whole of mankind and give it a 100-year lifespan, and that is the lifespan of man, we are about 16, maybe 15 years old. We're going through the mid-stage of puberty, which is coming into our mind. And all these ancient technologies need to come back out and be reintroduced to us in a different way, because we were at different stages of our growth as a human race. So that's why I believe that is the time of the Jedi. By the way, each of y'all bring those technologies forward. So you are a Jedi in nature. You are of your community the one that brings the hidden truths forward.
That's what the shaman used to do. That was the shaman's job. In
Exactly.
Was to get outside the bubble, to see the world in a different way, to be able to reflect that back. And I also wanted to add, since I'm talking now, Joseph Campbell, George Lucas was heavily influenced by Joseph Campbell as well.
Oh, that's true.
And he even, there's some great, the Power of Myth interviews were done at the Skywalker Ranch, which is George Lucas's.
That's right.
So they were very much, they were in the same boat. They were playing the same game.
Oh,
but yeah, the thing.
You listen to Yoda, the whole what Yoda says, and the whole myth of the Jedi itself, the Force. The Force is chi, you know, and I mean, I hope I'm not giving too much away, but you know, I know the storyline. They're about to bring the Grey Code. The Grey Code are the Jedi that have balanced the dark and the light side of the Force. They're Taoists, you know, is they talk about you live in the light, but you have to be aware of the dark. You have to understand the dark and how it works to be able to flow in the light.
That's the totality.
And the Grey Code, You know, the grey code are the Taoists. It's a balance between the yin and yang. You know, up to now, the story of Star Wars is almost opposing. You know, well, technically it is. You know, you've got the bad and you've got the good. You've got the dark side and the light side of the Force. But to truly be one with the universe, you have to balance the two. You know, there's a Taoist saying that it's interesting for me. I said this saying ever since I was about 12. So back in the 80s, I'd say it, and the amount of abuse I used to get as a 12-year-old kid, you know, and the saying was, there is no good or bad, there just is. And you know, up to about 10 years ago, oh, you know, people would really get offended by me saying, oh, yeah, but there's this, but everything just is, you know, is that it's you are your own Tao, you are your own self. It's up to you how you choose to see those things. But wherever you focus on grows. So if you say, I don't want negativity in my life, I don't want negativity in my life, I don't want the universe is negativity. It doesn't hear the don't want. It hears that it will focus on, the universe will naturally focus on the prime word. It's like Chinese. This is why in Chinese they don't have so much the twos and the the's and the it's. It's the primary words. You focus more on the primary words and what you actually want, the little words in between and get you to there. So it's this understanding that, you know, if you don't want something, focus on what you do want. Don't focus on what you don't. And what the whole thing, the Jedi of Light is all about, light and information. But somebody else now, Matt.
My favorite example of what the universe does is it's like there's a holistic health coach I'm a big fan of named Paul Chek, and he says it like this. It's the Grand Canyon effect. You walk up to the universe or the Grand Canyon and you bellow out, someday I will be healthy. And the universe and the Grand Canyon bellow back, someday you will be healthy. That's not now. That's not talking about being healthier. That's talking about someday in the future I will be healthy. Instead of something affirmative like I am becoming healthier now. Then
I'm having a smoothie.
I'm healthier now. You know, it works that way. Yeah, the Jedi and the consciousness. It's very much what I'm very pleased to see from Star Wars and all of that sort of thing is the new version of myth that is being born because we have no myths that currently. I'm paraphrasing Joseph Campbell. I'm not actually this smart. But our myths aren't evolving with our culture enough to teach us the things that we need to be learning. Like, there's no myth about, you know, usually there's myths about how to deal with most common life situations. There's no myth about good manners for text messages. There's no myth out there for, you know, good driving etiquette and not having road rage.
Totally right one.
That like illustrates this to us in the now. So and since we're changing so fast as cultures, you know, like you look at old cultures that were like when a culture would go from a hunting culture to a farming culture, or vice versa, like when the natives and the plains got horses and they went from a farming culture to a hunting culture, you can see their mythology change. But their mythology had plenty of time to change. They were introduced to horses, and that gave them the ability to start hunting, but they didn't instantly go out and become masterful hunters. They had the process of growth, which gave the myth time to grow along with them. So the myth of today doesn't exist. There's no myth of today, and that's why you see so many people who are so in love with movies and so in love with Hollywood. Those are the myths of today, and the problem is, again, I'm paraphrasing Joseph Campbell, and I 100% agree, is there's no moral ethics going into the people who are making these myths. These myths are not informative, they're not instructive, they're just a story that has no point. It's the difference between a myth and a folklore. Folklore has no point. It's there to tell around the fire and to that's basically it. But a myth is there to be instructive, so that way you can learn key elements. That's why the Native Americans teach in myth, because I believe it activates the left hemisphere of the brain. So you can remember a lot easier. I remember coyote stories. We were talking before the show started about coyote, and coyote's really big for me. There was a lady who came when I was 6 or 7 to I was homeschooled, but she came to a school, and my mom took me to that school, and she told coyote stories. And I remember coyote stories from when I was a kid. I'm almost 30. I remember those coyote stories, and I remember the parable that they were trying to teach me because it was presented to me in that way. instead of just being, hey, don't be a dick. There's a good story of why it's better to not have that behavior. You know, even the Bible teaches in parables. So back to the movie thing. So we have all of these movies being made where the characters are not archetypically teaching you anything. They're not generally doing that. So when a movie like Star Wars comes along, and it's kind of holding true for Marvel movies, I'm not up to date with all of them, but they are touching back on, because they're touching so deeply on those archetypes. And I want to say something about this that I find really fascinating about archetypes. Archetypes transcend everything. Because if you believe in astrology, you believe that your soul came to Earth on a ray of light and came so close to an archetypical force in the form of a planet that it warped the light of the light beam that your soul was on, and that changes who you are. So therefore, I'm a Virgo. My sun is in Virgo because of where my sun was as my soul came to Earth. So what I find absolutely fascinating is that these archetypes transcend all, to the point of, like, the father archetype. You can see manifest in almost every single animal on Earth in some form. Very few don't have father archetypes, or mother archetypes. Very few. I mean, like sharks, for instance. I think most sharks lay their eggs and then leave, and the baby shark is on its own. But consistently you see it manifest in all forms of life. The mother archetype is so universal that it transcends into almost every form of existence. And I think that is absolutely awe-inspiring and amazing that an archetypal energy like that can have such a profound effect on us. And I'm done.
Well, I like this round table that we're doing here, because that's how you figure out what the truth is.
Oh, yeah.
I only can see from my perspective.
Totally. It's that Taoist thing of, like, you gather all the masters around a rose. They're all talking about the same rose, but nobody's got the same perspective. You know? And that's why I really appreciate science for a lot of things, too, because for me, when I was growing up, I heavily believed in magic. And then science killed magic for me. I take responsibility, I allowed science to murder magic, because it stripped the magic out of the universe for me, because it explained everything. And at that point in my consciousness, that's where I was at. And then I came to the conclusion of science is simply the explanation of magic.
Science is only 13 years old, so it thinks it knows everything.
Oh, totally. I fell for that. I fell for that 13-year-old saying I'm grown up. I listened to it for a little while. My bad. But I caught on, you know. And so that experience of totality, people who watch the show know I'm all about the experiences of both sides, because I experienced the totality. It allowed me. I experienced pure magic, so I got the purity of utter magic, and then I experienced the true depression of believing in no magic, of believing in pure science, and then I reached and then the two of them came together, the yin and the yang came together, and now I have the totality and the balance to be able to appreciate that wind is magic. I don't care what anyone says. Wind is absolute magic. Sure, there's particles moving around and stuff, but that's just what's happening. So wind is magical. In fact, my next backpack I'm making is going to be the backpack that the gods keep the wind in. I forgot what its name is.
One of my theories is wind is the greatest energy mover on the planet.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Our mother moves energy from one area to another to heal herself, to move whatever she wants. The trees release the energy into the wind, and the wind carries the most efficient energy movement on the planet.
I absolutely agree.
And also the wind, like another native mythology, which Matt, as I was listening to Ethan talk about myth, I was wondering if you had any native stories that you wanted to share. But one of the things that I remember, and I've read in many books, is that listen to the whispers of the wind. There are messages carried on the wind, and that's something that I have been able to discern in my own intuition, and that has been really beautiful, because you can almost hear the ancients or the archetypes or whatever the forces speak to you or guide you when it's time to move, when it's time to go somewhere, do anything. It comes through the wind, the whispers. So does that jog anything for you, or do you have a story that you want to share, a mythos that's from your traditions? Because I know you am Taoist, right? Which is so me. I love it. Go.
I would mix them up. The problem is I've got stories from the Tao and the native, and I probably would start and mix the two of them.
And is that a problem? I don't see that as a problem.
Have you seen this show?
And that's a problem because you're Taoist. Mix it up, man. That's what's
Okay. Well, you do know about the Thunderbirds.
Oh yeah,
Tell me
Thunderbirds.
about the Thunderbirds. Yeah.
Yes, the Thunderbirds. First off, the Thunderbirds were not good at this time. They had decided that they were going to destroy man. Man had already done so much damage and all of that type stuff, and this was during colonial times when the buffalo was being slaughtered and all that type stuff, and the Thunderbird was going to wipe out mankind.
Wow.
And it was our elders, and it was specifically the buffalo elders that pleaded with them to spare us. And the only reason why we were spared was because there was of a small child. Because everybody else was self-centered, but this child was the one that gave back, that gave of herself. She was learning to be a medicine woman.
Yeah.
And she ended up growing up and everything, and the story is when she ascended, she became Buffalo Calf Woman. You may have heard of her.
Ah, my favorite.
So there's the mix. Because again, it's a balance of understanding that Mother Nature is like we are, healing. We cannot repair our mother. We repair our relationship to our mother, but it's not that we repair our mother. And that's what the story is all about, is that we cannot undo our wrongs. We only can undo our perspective so we don't continue moving forward in our wrongs.
I can really understand that with the way that she
Michelle, you muted yourself.
when I hear dances. Yeah, sorry, my alarm went off.
That's cool.
No, I really understand. I really understand that with the way Great Mother speaks. When she speaks, it's totally about just a different way, like a more open-hearted view, so that we can come into community with one another, and so we can respect each other and really serve the greater whole, which totally ecosystem-wise makes sense, right? That you would be a part of a greater collective and have a heart-based consciousness. That's what I'm seeing a lot of.
Well, one of the things I teach in that Jedi, what I was mentioning, is that you are a Gaia. You are not a single entity. There are 7 billion other creatures inside of you helping you live. And you are a Gaia. You have creatures inside of you that call you God. Why? Because they live and die for you. And I can be ego enough to say I'm Matt, but out of the 7 billion other creatures of me, what's their name?
As Matt knows, there's a whole Qigong set where actually they see the human body as a solar system. Your heart is the sun, your different organs are planets, and there's a whole Qigong, the whole Taoist Qigong. You know, the whole thing of the Tao, the interesting thing about the Tao, it's not one set flavour. There's all these different ways of doing the same thing. And that's what, the word Tao means the way, the path, the balance. And it's your personal way. The whole metaphor of the company, the way of, is the Taoist joke. It's the metaphor of the word the Tao itself. People sort of try to, because in the West we split things up and separate things. Oh, Tao means this, and Tao is a religion. It's this, it's that. And it's like, well,
oh, sorry.
no, well, it's the interesting thing. I mean, in England, I don't know about America, they note the religions, so they call Buddhism and Taoism religions. Now, the Latin word religion, the word religion comes from the Latin word religio, which means bond with the Almighty, the Supreme Being. Now, in Taoism and Buddhism, you are God, you are Buddha. Buddha nature, the Tao, lives within you. Everything and everyone is the Tao. So, technically, with the awkward boggy side, technically, Buddhism and Taoism isn't a religion. It's more of more in-depth philosophy. But the point is that everything is the same source. Is this, and whatever your religion is, I have complete respect. But when you actually look in the deeper depths, I've done theology. I've read the Quran. I've read Hindu texts. I've read Sikh texts, Buddhism, Taoism, Tibetan. And when you go into the basics of these books, the religions, they say everything is God. It goes back to everything is oneness. God, you are part of that. Even in the Hebrew of the Old Testament, what was translated as God created man in his own image. I had a great Hebrew friend of mine, a great scholar, and he said it never said that. It doesn't say that. It said God created everything in its own image. So everything is in the image of God. Of course, straight away you go, how does that make sense? Well, that's because creating everything image, everything is God. Everything is God. Everything is that source. Is what don't call God, call it whatever you want. Ding dang dong, banana, strawberry, milkshake. Everything is that. Know me, Matt. I like throwing words in there.
Oh yeah. Well, I can say one of the things that I still say the new religion is going to be the omnipresent atom. There's one atom and it's just omnipresent.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Yeah. There's only one atom.
Huh. Yeah. Oh, is that like the singularity I keep hearing about?
It's a joke. It's a joke.
Is that the singularity? Oh, it's
That's
not?
the singularity. But say,
Was it a
if
play
you
on?
think about it, is the smallest building block. Think of the smallest building block. Okay, we can say it's quark. There's the omnipresent quark. There's only one of them.
Okay.
And he's just everywhere.
Yeah.
Or she's everywhere.
I guess
It's true.
I don't get it.
Really, it's like that whole. It's like that whole thing of Jesus said, he didn't say lift a Christian rock and I'll be there,
Yeah. but
only under the Christian rock.
But
Okay,
whole
right
point is, we are all of us here. We still like different things. There will be something I like, I don't, but that doesn't matter. But the whole point of religions, of faiths, were to point you in a direction. The great Bruce Lee said, it's like a finger pointing towards the moon. Don't look at the finger because you'll miss all that heavenly glory. The religion is a finger pointing you in the direction of that knowledge. Science is a finger pointing in the direction. Star Wars is a finger, and so on. It's all about the enjoyment.
Star Wars is
it's
totally
all about
a
yeah.
well, Mel Brooks was a finger too.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
So, I just wanted to. Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add for people watching. The whole thing of so there are a set of people teaching the D-Jedi. Now the interesting thing is like the Matt side and my side are similar, but they have different flavors. Yep. But there are D-Jedi everywhere. Ethan is a Jedi. He's a Jedi. He's a clothesmith, and he will create your myth. Michelle, she is a Jedi. She'll open your heart. Yep. A feminine way to open up spirituality. Matt is a Jedi, but Brendan Collington, aka Skull Babylon, the Shifters, they're Jedi. They are there to wake you up. Remember, we're not, as far as I'm concerned, we're not sensei. We're not masters. We don't know it all. We're here learning as well, but we'll help you point you in the right direction. It's helping you find the way. Andrew Morrissey and the whole Universal Heroes, Jedi again. Peter Fay, Into the Mythica, Jedi again. There are so many ways. There are so many different styles. And one thing I'm known with my students, and Matt knows this, I encourage you to learn from other people. I'm not a sensei. I'm not a master. I'm not a teacher that says you must learn from me and only me, or you will go to hell or somewhere very smelly. You know, I believe very much is that everyone and everything is your seafood. So come and learn from me, cool. And when it's time to move on, you move on, but you're still there. There's still essence. So when you come back, it's not, oh, you haven't seen me for 10 years. Oh, Matt, my friend, it's good to see you. And because you're a brother, because everyone and everything you will learn from. All you have to do is open your heart, open your mind, open your spirit. Open up to the learning. Accept that everything's learning, and then you will learn. Accept nothing is learning, and you will learn nothing. But hey, what do I know?
That's a good one. No, I like that last part. Acceptance is a huge thing on my path right now.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to quickly say this on the Taoist thing. The three ones is the three ones is being Taoist quite complicated. The three ones is the three Dantians. The three ones is Qi Jing and Shen. The three ones is mind, body, and spirit. The three ones is also there's a very cool symbol. And in some of the videos in the future, you'll see the symbol, a sacred Taoist symbol, and that is the three pure ones. So the three pure ones
I have it somewhere about you for your jacket. I don't know where it is though.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, because I asked you to put it on there. So it's love, gratitude, forgiveness. You know, is unconditional love to love things openly and fully. Gratitude, to be grateful for everything you see, both good and bad. And forgiveness is that you can't grow, you can't move on until you forgive the past, present, and future. You have to let go to move, because if you grab everything and hold on to it, you just get heavier and heavier and heavier until something happens. Now, interesting in Taoist terms, well, accidents, illnesses are stickiness. It's you being stuck. Is in the Taoist medical side, when you're ill, there is an imbalance. You're stuck on something. You're holding on. So pending which organ that illness is in will actually indicate what it is or what emotion you're producing from that. So kidneys can be worry, liver is lividness, anger. Depression can come from the heart, and so on and so forth. Each each organ has.
I found it.
Oh, there it is. Yeah,
there it is.
Very good ones. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in there. Is that it's very much in the Buddhist philosophy, but it's in also the Taoist, of course. It's in the Taoist as well. It's the three pure ones. It's unconditional love, compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude. Is the three. You know, if you stick to anything, you stick to those. You have hold those within your Tao, within your internal galaxy that's within you. So anyway, I've talked enough. So Matt, where do you want to go next? What's next?
Well, I was going to say, taking what you're speaking of now, one of the probably something that would help the most of people is understanding a couple of words. One of them is forgiveness. What would be someone's description of forgiveness? Is forgiveness saying, oh, that's all right that happened, and is it that? What is forgiveness? All I can speak for is myself. What forgiveness is knowing there's a reason. That means that there is a path that someone's on, and it's knowing that that path is being followed. Forgiveness, it's not my point to judge someone. So if I'm judging someone and I must forgive them in saying, oh, I'll be good and say that's all right, that's kind of silly, because that means that you're holding on to something. The number one killer in this planet is holding on to something. Number 2 is sedentary lifestyle. Number
Because you're
1.
holding on to the remote.
Yep. Well, holding on to things is what causes cancer, heart disease, all the different things. Stagnant energy in traditional Chinese medicine.
Suffering is attachment. Yeah,
Yep.
totally.
Well, that's the main
all,
principle of Buddhism, isn't it? Buddhism is suffering. Sorry, Matt, continue.
But when it comes to forgiveness, understanding what it is, we've been told by so many religions, you must forgive this, but they never say what forgiveness is. And the truth is when I go back, I do come from a Christian root, so I will use one of the phrases that Christ used, which was 70 times 7. Well, when you take that number, the 7 trillion cells of your being kind of balances with that number, and guess what? What that means is releasing it with every cell in your being, letting go
Totally.
of what it is. So when you know, not believe, know there's a reason, you can't hold on to it. So that is my definition. And the reason why I speak that way is because I don't believe that I can speak truths. I only can share truths. And it's when the group of us come up with that truth, that's the sharing of that truth.
Very wise. I love it. Yeah, for sure. The thing that came up for me when you were speaking was that forgiveness gives space for compassion.
It does take one. Each one of those 3 actually feed into each other. That's the reason why it has that dot in the center of each one. Is it takes compassion to have love.
Hugh, Ethan.
I put it away!
You're not meant to put it away!
No, I was responsible one time and
Master!
Actually, Ethan, I've decided I want another Warhammer with that symbol on it. You hated doing the Tai Chi one. Now you've got to do one with that on it on both sides.
Okay.
You're not going to love me, are you? Oh well.
I might have some things to say. I might have some things to say, but I'll still love you.
Yeah. Wait for until we're offline, then you can. You know, the thing is, as Matt knows, the thing with that symbol is it's classed in a lot of Taoism. It's classed as Minren, inside the door student. It's secret stuff, and it shouldn't. For me, it shouldn't be. It should be stuff that everybody knows. You know, like the whole thing with education. There are so many valuable learn.
Foggy, you're breaking
I
up.
don't know about. Okay, how about now? Is it still correctly?
Oh, that's better.
Okay.
That's better.
One thing I learned, I don't know about America, but in the UK, there is a big difference between public schools and private schools, what they teach. The public schools tend to dictate stuff and say this, that, and the other. In the private schools that I've taught Tai Chi and Qigong, they more guide, they use the Plato way of teaching, which is, I always find real funny, that Plato was very much about everybody being in a circle, and he would put in a suggestion, an idea, and then everybody would contribute. Yet the standard industrial, after the Industrial Revolution, the way schools went was that it was dictatorship as such, is that you had a teacher telling you, dictating what you must learn on a board, and the whole thing is that the way you learn, one of the funniest things for me, very quickly, one of the funniest things for me as a kid, spider diagrams, thing you guys know, basically you have an idea, draw a circle, put that idea in the centre, and then you draw lines off and draw other circles of what, so like Tai Chi, so Tai Chi is a martial art in another circle, and after that be martial art, meditation, and medical, which is the 3 ones of Tai Chi. And so you would draw these little diagrams. Yeah. So as a kid, I did that as a kid. And at school, I was actually given detentions and told off at school because that was classed as doodling. I was told I was graffitiing my school books. well, I know we all laugh now, but this was so I left school in 1986. So from yeah, around about 1982. Yeah, that was graffitiing, and I got detentions for doing something that I know now is taught in schools as a common thing, or at least in the UK. Yeah, they use spider diagrams all the time, and that's the thing. It's you know, the old way of learning is the old way of learning. It's time to wake up. That's why I did, because of I'm dyslexic, possibly slightly dyspraxic as well, and that was self-diagnosed until only about 8 years ago, and far more when I left school than I ever learnt at school, university, and that's when I really started exploding into knowledge, because the main reason was I got to learn the way I learn. I did things with the, and I think even better now, back then with the Open University, it was you learn at your time, you could do it in audio, and yeah, so I could really go into this stuff and really learn. Because I learnt advanced learning techniques, one of the skills I learned, of that there are different ways people learn. Some people are more auditory, some people are more kinesthetic, some people are more physical. That's why you had people at school that would really be good at woodwork but lousy at, you know, the theatrical stuff, you know, like you know, maths and English and everything else. But they would be really good at something because that's their learning skill is of that nature. So it's learning how you learn. Find out how you learn. All this blubbering me going on about. Find out how you learn. That's your most important thing. Once you know how you learn, then learn. But look, one of the important things about learning is it should be fun. You should be enjoying it. If you're not having fun, try a different way. Else. Right. That's me shut up. So, Matt, is there anything you'd like to go from there or somewhere else?
As you were saying, when it comes to learn your way, I agree 100%. I have had the reason I teach not just Qigong, strength training, yoga, many different forms is because not all forms is for the same person. And that's one thing I tell them is please go experience the different forms, the different ways of movement. Because in my Taoist learning and way that I look at, if you're tired, sleep. If you're hungry, eat. Otherwise, move. I really don't care how you move, just move. And when it comes down to it, yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, acro yoga, dance, skating, skydiving, sex, all good movements. And it is going to continue your life in a great way. One thing that I teach in my class too is, you know, this new age thing that we want to be this crystal light being. Oops, you already are. 89% of your bones is calcite crystal.
Yep.
Your cells have photons within them that actually say how much light to emit. So you're already a crystal light being, so quit trying to be that.
Oh, good to know. Just kidding.
Well, Matt, I think you'll know this. That's the whole thing in science. Still doesn't quite understand how plants convert light into energy. You know, it's still a big, like Ethan was talking about magic, and you know, actually there is magic in science. They just don't like to use the M word, because you know there is still things that they don't understand. You know, is that plants synthesize. You know, they convert light into energy. In this, like, you know, we're still struggling to do that now, and yet nature does these things quite naturally, openly, easily, and powerfully.
Very, very. And that's the thing is, when it comes to plants, we have so much in common. Did you know that you digest the same way a plant does? Your digestion works the same way. I don't eat food. I consume food. The bacteria in my gut are the ones that eat the food, and it's the bacteria that feeds me. So guess what I eat? I eat bacteria poop. So do plants.
Gross.
It's the truth. It's how we get our nutrients. And when you realize that your army of bacteria, and that's the reason why in permaculture you're not supposed to till, is because that ribosome layer has that bacteria that plant has cultivated. Like we do Qigong, it's doing Qigong with the soil, bringing in the right bacteria to keep it healthy.
And aren't there some bacteria that like throw other bacteria to the plant and feed it? If I have this right, like some bacteria are actually throwing other bacteria into the plant, and the plant is consuming them. Which I just love as an idea because I'm not a vegetarian, and I think that on a certain level, at least the animal can run away, and the plant's kind of just stuck there. You know what I mean? Like that carrot that you grew in your garden isn't going to have the advantage that that chicken you grew in that you raised in that pen has. The chicken can try and make a break for it. That carrot's got to accept its fate. It's got to go, okay, I'm ready to try being human now. Because ultimately, that's all food is like, you know, everyone's like, oh, don't eat this, don't eat that. It is here to try and live the experience of being a human. That cow that you ate, that chicken that you ate, that carrot that you ate wants to be human. It wants to have those cells want to have the experience of trying what it's like to be part of this human experience. Again, this is a stolen concept, Paul Chek's concept. Most of my good concepts are stolen, borrowed. But that concept of like that animal or that plant was put here because it wanted to experience being human. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here because the universe hasn't made any mistakes, as far as I know. It doesn't seem like it does. It's got stuff pretty well planned out. You know, I mean, really. So that I find a lot of humor, and I know a lot of people get upset at this concept of like, because I was raised with love for all plants. We raised chickens, we raised rabbits. We didn't kill any of our animals for meat.
Once you name it, you better not.
Say what?
Once you name it, you better not.
Oh yeah, there's no way I could have killed my rabbits or my chickens. There's no way. Like the first animal I actually killed was a raccoon who had eaten my chicken because I was so distraught about it. And I knew the raccoon would come back and eat the rest of the chickens, so I had to do it. That was my first murder that I committed on an animal that I didn't eat. Was defending my beloved chicken, which was already dead. Anyway, that's another story. But this idea that since all things are life and all things are sacred, and everything is alive on one level or another, I just don't see the difference between eating an animal and eating a plant, except that the plant's blood looks different, and you can't make eye contact with it. And you don't have to look at its face and feel its pain as it's dying because it's of a different vibrational frequency that most people are so closed off to. To me, I don't see a difference. And I'm sure there's a vegan out there somewhere who I've just pissed off royally.
Well, we consume life.
Yeah, life exists by destruction of life. All forms of life.
Well, actually, not destruction. Nothing can be created or destroyed. It's only transformed.
Repurposed.
That's the whole point. Transformation is that.
Yeah.
Is Taoistically, everything is alive, and this is the whole point of the free pure one. Is when you eat something, whether it's animal or vegetable, you give gratitude. Gratitude is thanks. You go back to all these ancient cultures, the whole Thanksgiving or giving thanks was thanking the food, not just thanking the farmer who made it or thanking yourselves, for nature providing the sun and the rain for things to grow, but thanking the food itself. Within the American Indian culture, within the Inuit culture, within the Aborigines, with all these ancient cultures, one of the prime things is when you eat, you're giving praise to it, you're thanking it. When you hunt it and you kill it, in actual fact, in some of the ancient cultures, their ritual for blessing, when they killed an animal, they had a certain ritual and a blessing they do there and then. But they also did that when they were taking plants out of the ground. When they were there was the same ritual they used. There's a big thing within Buddhism and very much in Buddhism is they'll thank the thing when they get something that they're eventually going to eat. So before all the preparation, when they first pick it up or they first go to get it, there is a blessing ritual. There's a thanking ritual, gratitude. And they get it, and then while they're cleaning it, they're cleaning off the char, and they encourage the chi. There's another thanking ritual. And then when they cook it, there's another thanking ritual. Meat or veg, both the same thing. And when eventually they eat it, there's another thanking ritual. Now, Taoistically, we'll just pick a point where you go, yeah, thanks, boom. But it's more of that you're always in gratitude, if you're always in thanks for everything that's happening around you, then you radiate that love out, because gratitude is love. Forgiveness is love. The three ones are all inclusive, are one. So, but anyway, Matt, continue, dear sir.
Yes, yes. Well, where was I?
Somewhere in the ethers of time and space, methinks.
Oh, one of those things. Yes. Well, time. Again, as I said, we don't really describe time because that's describing the Tao. Because the easiest way to look at it is if you're looking at the first dimension is a dot. Second dimension's a line. Third dimension would be the next, which is depth. So that it's all encompassing of the last. So if time is supposed to be the fourth dimension, that would mean it would fully encompass the third. 100%. So I can't describe time other than saying my perception of time is it's running out. Always. I'm always chasing it because I want more time.
Totally.
So then I should meditate more. In my masters would tell me, then meditate more. Spend more time in meditation. You'll have more time.
Yep. Sorry, Matt. Errol?
I always had less time. Because now I'll stand there for the next hour. And because you asked again.
Oh, yes. The wonders of each Eastern teaching. If you ask too many questions, stay there for another 4 hours.
That's right.
If you stop asking questions, you're ready.
Oh, actually, the funny thing is I get griped out because I answer questions. I'm not supposed to answer them.
You know, that's something that's always like, I have this whole thing, right? So I was raised by a very strong, intelligent woman who, like, I'm 100% all about the sharing of women's mysteries and men's mysteries. This is something, there's also a lot of people in my experience have these concepts, like old religions had it figured out. Old religions did not necessarily have it figured out. They had a lot of things figured out. But there's certain cultures where, you know, the whole human sacrifice thing, I don't think that's really necessary. I don't think they quite had it down there. You know, I think that was a miss as far as I'm concerned. So
it was a mess.
Yeah. So, like, it was a lesson. We learned it. We need to move on. So, for me, this separation between men's mysteries and women's mysteries, because there was never any women's mysteries for me growing up. It was always clearly explained. There was no confusion. There was nothing along those lines. A period, I don't find a period disgusting. I think it's normal and whatever. So there's this even in like some of the alternative communities that I dabble around with and play around with people from that community. There's this thing of like there's this separation of like the pagan community where they'll have the men's mysteries and the women's mysteries, and the men go off on a hike and the women get together. That is what it was, kids. We need to fucking move on, because I learned a lot of things learning the women's mysteries at a young age. I feel it helped me to become a much more grounded and better man. Man being in quotation marks there, man. Because I grew up learning those mysteries, and I really feel like a lot of women would benefit from being around more men, and there wouldn't be this division of, it's really common in a lot of the less conscious men of the world, I'll put it this way, where like they act differently around their girlfriends. They act differently around women. They have man time, and then there's the other time. That, to me, is a conflicting state of being that needs to be worked on, and we need to work this out. There needs to me there needs to not be this division of like, oh, this is women's mysteries and this is men's mysteries. Men can learn just as much from the women's mysteries as women can learn from the men's mysteries. And in fact, I think at this point it's almost better to indoctrinate them into the opposite, so that way they can try and have a more full picture of it as they're growing up and as they see it. I had a stepdaughter who I recently separated with her mom, and we always tried to make her aware of everything. Oh, like the reason that boy is teasing you at school is because he's attracted to you. You know, keep it PG for a child, absolutely, but absolutely present the information. That's another thing that I usually rant about, is about children and kids. There's two kinds of people in the world. People who have children. Children are going to grow up to be adults. They're little people. They'll someday be big people. So you need to get them trained and answer their questions. And then there's kids, and kids are going to be kids forever. Those are the parents who don't answer their kids' questions, who ignore their children, who talk over their children. I see it all the time, and I usually interrupt them and talk to their child instead of them when that happens. So there's that prevailing mentality. That's another rant. So ultimately, the separation between men and women, it's not supposed to be there, and I think that we're seeing this more and more with this whole transgender thing, which, like, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I'm 100%. I support the transgender thing. This whole thing about the ma'am and sir thing has got me like in a twitch slightly, of like, you know, it doesn't matter if you're upset about the gender inflection someone is using on you. I think you should probably try and transcend that, because I'm dyslexic and autistic, and I was homeschooled, and like, according to the United States government, I have a learning disability. I have benefits for my learning disability, not financial, but other benefits of like access to the Library of Congress's tape collection and stuff like that. And people call me stupid. People have called me stupid my whole life. I'm not going around saying, don't call anyone stupid, because it hurts my feelings. I'm taking responsibility for my feelings.
Don't call someone stupid, because that's a reflection of what's going on in you.
Oh yeah, oh totally. Like when you think somebody else is stupid.
In that way.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's 100% a reflection.
Going on here?
Yeah, it's absolutely a reflection. It's like when you can tell a lot about someone's consciousness by how they interact with you and the words that they choose to use when they're talking about yourself or others. I don't know if you're familiar with Nonviolent Communication by Marco Rosenberg. You are? Yeah! So you know.
I teach it.
Oh, you teach it? Oh! So I bought, I'll let you in.
Giraffe ears.
Oh, giraffe ears. I'll send you a picture. I used to take toys and take them apart and put them together. I made a nonviolent communication rescue worker, and he's like a body of a fireman with a giraffe's head. So when I first discovered nonviolent communication, so I'm dyslexic and I don't read books. I read the book. I read the whole book. One of like 20 books in my 30 years of life I've actually read that was not a child's book. And then there's an audio series of it, True Sounds True. I bought the 9-disc audio series and an MP3 player so I could listen to it. That was why I bought the MP3 player, and I've listened to it at least 6 or 7 times. So the words that we choose are very important. Like, people make me feel. That's one that always stuck with me very strongly. It's about how people say this, and many people say this, about how this makes me feel a certain way. And that's giving away your personal power. I mean, you know this, Matt, but a lot of other people don't. When you say something's making you feel a certain way, that's giving someone the power to control how you feel. And my God, is that a scary feeling. I can speak for myself. When I felt like other people controlled how I felt, that was terrifying. It's really hard to feel safe when you feel like the whole world has power over how you feel. But you're giving that away with the words that you're choosing. So you can watch other people. I'm a big fan of spider magic and watching the web and watching what the web has to show you. And you know, and of course with spider magic, a lot of people think that, you know, you watch the web and then you become this, like, you learn everything and you know everything, but you still can misread the web, as with all things, you know. And sometimes the web, it just isn't true. You'll see examples of something 99% of the time is true, a characteristic in a human, but you're going to still encounter that 1%, that dot in the yin or the yang of the opposite that will completely throw you off and prove you wrong. So, you know, you can never be like too self-confident about, oh yeah, I got this. Oh, there it is, that yin yang square. Monsters.
Feel the onion again.
Monsters be difficult. So, yeah. So the language that people use is highly important because it's how we address ourselves and how we talk to ourselves. And Marshall Rosenberg also talks about the way that we relate to children and how we don't take children seriously in our society. All sorts of things. Anyone, if you ever read a book, read Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication. It will change your life. Oh, and something that I wanted to say earlier, since I'm on my rant now, is about the whole concept of religion. I really like the way Denming Dao, in 365, which is another really good book of short daily meditations by this Taoist. And he studied martial forms and Tai Chi forms and all sorts of good stuff. And he puts it as religions are donkeys. We're all trying to get to the top of the mountain. It doesn't necessarily matter which donkey you ride. As long as you get to the top of the mountain, they'll all get you there. Some of them will take different paths. Some of them will be scarier. But ultimately, a religion is simply the conveyance, as you were saying earlier, or the donkey that will get you to the top of the mountain of spirituality. And that's always been a really powerful metaphor for me, trying to look at other religions. It's like, okay, your donkey's stinky. I don't like the way it looks. But okay, I'll try and I see where it's taking you, so I guess that's good. It's doing its job. I'm gonna hold my nose while you're going past me and give you a thumbs up,
Ethan, are you talking about me again?
No. I could be.
I mean, one of the things
mine may be smelly, but yours is loud.
Yeah, mine's loud. Mine has a motor mouth. Just won't shut up.
Mine's smelly and silent. Yours is noisy.
And mine, I just can't get to move.
Mine's only happy when there's ice under its feet.
But have you ever been able to go up a mountain covered in ice?
That would be.
I've been up and down a mountain covered in snow.
Okay.
I'm surprise. I'm an avid snowboarder. I haven't done it for blimey 8 years now. But there's we've gone on ice skating now. Shut me up quick. There is a thing called snowblades, which are basically tiny little skis. They're just like ice skates. I've only tried them once. And
cool.
It mimics ice skating exactly, and I found because my friends took me to like snowboarding, so you've got to try snowboarding, and I love snowboarding. But then, man, because basically what I can do on ice, I could do on snow, and it was like freaking awesome because I'm not sure if we actually said it in the live show, but I'm basically like drunken kung fu panda on ice. When people see me skate, they always say, you look like any second you're going to fall over, but you never do. You do all this crazy stuff. Or maybe a good explanation for those who knew him is like Charlie Chan on ice or Jackie Chan. I'm sort of very clumsy, and I've got this very unpredictable way of skating. It flows and it works for me. Most people would break their neck, but it's the way I skate. And I've tried these snowblades, and like I said, I absolutely fell in love. But unfortunately, since then, I haven't had chance to ski or snow skate. But yeah, up a mountain on a snowboard, we was doing all our tricks and stunts. There's a thing called, in ice skating, there's a thing called the whip, which is one person's going forwards, the other person's going backwards slower, and the forward person goes up to the other person, they grab hands and they pull each other and they turn, and then the one going the person, so it speeds them up. Does that make sense? And we've done that on the snowboards. Me and my mate Darren, we did a whip on snowboards, and it was freaking awesome. It worked. As I'm snowboarding backwards, suddenly thinking, okay, I need to turn around here. But yeah, it's but yeah, flow chi. For me, that sort of thing, it's Bruce Lee would say to express oneself openly and honestly in everything you do. And skating for me is the ultimate expression of energy, expression of flow. I think a lot of people say, for me, with me, a lot of people say when they see me on other rollerblades, but especially ice skating, when they see me, you say you look so different. You don't look like the same person. And it's about expression, I suppose. It's about expressing. It's about really going with the flow, really being one with the nature of the Tao. And the nature of the Tao, when you've got ice skates on, is flowing. Is that your aim is to flow, is to glide, is to be. But hey, what do I know? But well, Matt knows this. You know, I've always said this. Hey, what do I know? And the whole point of that is never take yourself or anything else too seriously. So the whole point of that, it's Taoist saying. The whole point of that saying is that yep, I've said this information, but take it with a pinch of salt. If you know, a pinch of salt on its own is quite bitter, and it's not probably a good thing to take unless you're really dehydrated. But a pinch of salt in your food will enhance the flavour. So take everything as a pinch of salt, but then add it to food, add it to something else. But hey, what do I know?
It kind of reminds me of that old thing of like of bearing weight. The best and one of my favorite examples is I haven't done this to anybody, but I'm sure it would be fabulous, and I've heard about it. Talk about dealing with a problem. So the problem's small, right? So you give somebody a glass of water that's half full. Okay, so this is the problem. Now hold out your arm. Hold out their arm, a glass of water. Okay, so you can deal with this problem. Yeah, I got this problem. All right, you're gonna stand here for an hour. Still think you got this problem solved? Still think you can handle this problem? Make it 2 hours. Because after 2 hours, that little glass of water, or after an hour, really after like 10 or 15 minutes for most people, it's gonna be, oh yeah, it's gonna be a tough thing.
Don't give me a glass of water, I'll just drink it.
Yeah, well, that's because you're sensible. That's because that's
the thing.
Ultimately, with my experience of learning with Tao and all of those things, is learning the two ways of doing things, and then learning when it's okay to do the third thing. Because really, that's what it boils down to. Like, I've noticed something with manners. Like, I was really I was raised with good manners. Please, thank you, sir, ma'am. Not out of, like, you know, cowering in fear, but just because that's how you showed respect. And as a result of that, I see how people interact with me, and then I watch how people, like, I'll be working with somebody, and I'll watch how somebody interacts with the person I'm working with who isn't saying those things. And the person, and I interact with the person and I say those things. And I totally forgot where I was going with this. Manners. Training and knowing when to use it and when not to use it. So as a result, I know when to use sir and ma'am and please and thank you and all that stuff, because I was raised with that mentality, where I know people who are not raised with that mentality and they're slightly socially crippled because they don't know the context to use that. So the understanding of Tao is understanding when to say please and thank you, when it's really important to say please and thank you, when it's important to say sir and ma'am, having the knowledge, wisdom of when to use it and when not to use it. Because the rest of the time you can just throw it out the window. And you don't have to worry about it. It's like we keep referencing Bruce Lee, so I'm going to reference one of my favorite Bruce Lee. In the beginning, a punch is so many things. I'm slightly misquoting. But, I mean, if you've ever studied martial arts, you know there's a lot that goes into a punch. And then after a while, a punch is just a punch. And then it becomes so many things. You were talking about this earlier, Matt, about the squeezing and the releasing, of that, you know, you get a new understanding of something, and you hold it tight in this new light and this new understanding, and then you ultimately release it again, which allows it to flow off, and then you can grab it again, and it's this whole new experience of a punch being so much more than a punch, of your manners that you were forced to learn as a child becoming this amazing tool and a social lubricant to help you through your life that you don't always need to know when to use. Or like good table manners is another great example. Because there are certain social situations where good table manners, you don't need them, but it's going to make everyone else uncomfortable if you don't know good table manners. And so you have the choice of being able to interact with that group in a way that is more on your terms, because you have the training to be able to deal with it. But it doesn't mean that when you're sitting around with your friend, you're not going to talk with your mouth full. Slobber food all over your face. Before the show, I was talking to everybody, and I'm slobbering salad all over my beard. You know,
Isn't that what a beard's for?
In a 5-star restaurant. Say what? What about your beard, man?
Isn't that what our beard's for? That's my bib.
Yeah, totally.
Hey, we should start our own show, The Free Beards.
And then when we all shave them, we can be men without beards, like men without hats. So yeah, that discernment of knowing when to break the rules and not break the rules, of when it's appropriate and applicable to throw your training out the window, is ultimately that finite balance that everyone needs to learn, which is the truth of the situation, that instead of the faith. I do truth and faith. So faith is it sucks to lose your wallet, and then you lose your wallet and you understand the truth of it, as a general open-ended metaphor. So, and also sparks me for a Joseph Campbell thing that I read not too long ago about how religion has changed. You know, it used to be the priest was in front of the group of people. He had his back to the people because he was facing God with the people addressing God. And now the priest is facing the congregation because now the priest represents God. Instead of the priest representing the people who are talking to God, the priest has now become God who is talking to the people.
And he's turned his back on God.
And he's turned his back on God. And another thing that connects to the D-Jedi and the Pillar of Light, and for me, because we all have preferred words. We're all talking about the same archetypal energy. It's like if you talk about the energy lightning force. I like Thunderbirds to talk about lightning, or Thor. I don't really like Zeus because I don't like the stories about Zeus because, you know, he's running around raping people. Not respectful. Not something I want in my life. I'd rather have Thunderbird stories or Thor stories in my life. So ultimately, since we're talking about that archetypal energy, what I was going to say. I get so excited about stuff and then I forget what I was going to say. Oh, so shaman. That's what I was going to say. So my version of D-Jedi is shaman. This is a newer relationship that I've been forming. But something that's really powerful that Campbell pointed out to me was that a priest is telling you about other people's experiences and stories, where a shaman has had his own fucked up life, because that's one of the things that it takes to make a shaman, is you have a fucked up life, different from everybody else, you get fucked up by it, and you heal from it. And that's what makes you a shaman. Or you die, and then you're not really a shaman. And so that's like, you know, that's Mother Nature. Mother Nature is so kind in her cruelty. You know, you look at, like, animals that are getting old and sick and dying in our culture, like, say someone has a house pet, like a cat or a dog. That animal is gonna live much longer than it should have if it was in nature, because the compassion of nature is to end suffering when it gets to a certain point. That's why there's no chronic illnesses in nature, because nature has compassion to end that suffering. And cruelty is the compassion, the double-edged sword, the yin and the yang, the spot inside. So ultimately, all this to say about shaman is a shaman has had his own spiritual experiences. He has his own familiars. He has all of these things that he understands the truth of because he went through that experience. And so he has that as part of himself. Instead of quoting someone who had a religious experience 1,000 years before him that he read about, or 2,000 years before him, or whatever it may be. And he's not taking in the information. Like, let's say you read the Tao Te Ching. You're taking in that information, but the way it's presented to you in a riddle, it doesn't clearly speak its truth to you necessarily. So then you have to have a personal relationship with seeking the truth that is inside that. That's, I think, one of the points in riddles of spirituality being presented in riddles, is that it takes a certain amount of self-exploration. And I'm pretty sure, Boggy, I could be wrong about this, but I've heard in China, when they teach you Tai Chi, they don't tell you, or Qigong, they don't tell you what points to focus on. Because, like, when I learned Tai Chi, the form I learned, you know, they say, okay, now you've moved the energy to this point, and they tell you about the point, and the energy of the point, and the spirit of the point. None of that, in my understanding, is taught in China. So that way you have if you do survive your shaman experience, metaphorically, and you do get to that pillar of where you're doing Qigong consistently, and you fully understand the art, you will have assimilated that experience in a way that no one who has been told that can experience it, because they didn't. It wasn't like a flashlight. Follow this beam of light, and the teacher's showing a flashlight. It's like, go that direction and find out what's out there. You're going to end up in the same place, but you're going to have a totally different experience fumbling around in the dark, gaining your own perspective, wondering what the fuck you just stepped in, wondering what you just put your finger in as you're groping along this wall, rather than if you had someone there saying, oh, that's just this, or that's just that, because you will have this whole other experience of truth with it. So the shaman is so much more powerful than a priest, in my opinion, because it is personalized, because it is that truth, because it is directly relating to that person and their experiences, so they have the understanding that instead of just blindly repeating something that they don't have an experience with, someone else's truth.
Well, one of the things I would honestly say is a priest probably has had all that crap too. He's just not going to tell you about it.
Generally, yes, and then there's, of course,
with you about it, like the shaman will.
Yeah, totally. There should be like, hey, get this scar out. You know, this is the time.
You know that time that I drank 4 glasses of that and I was not supposed to? Oh.
Yeah.
What I wanted to quickly say was, what Ethan said about like teeth. Is the whole thing I found, my personal, the teachers I had, Shun and Po especially, were very Taoist, but were very Chinese in the essence of, in China, it's all about the 3 ones, as in Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism. So Confucianism is all about the law and the order. Taoism is about the enjoyment and the wonder and going with the flow, and Buddhism is about the compassion and the love. Hence, when you go to China and you'll find Taoist temples run by Buddhists, so there'll be orange robes run by Buddhists, and the guys who are looking at paying the bills and doing that, they're using Confucian system. You know, there's this weird mix of Taoism, and in the last 200 years, what's added now is Christianity sort of been added to that mix, and to the fact that the reason in the West we see Taoism and Buddhism as a religion is because what China did in reaction to Christianity coming to China is that there became a sect of Taoism which was had a church and had a pope. They sort of created, they said, okay, well, we can do this too, we can match that. Where in England, in paganism, when Christianity came through, it slowly eradicated the Druids and the pagans by the sacred stone temples. The Christianity would create a church there. Hence why all the churches in the UK are on ley lines, because they're on the ancient way, the old Druids and pagans, they're on the sites of where the ley lines are. But the whole point in China, they adapt things, they alter things, they change. Now, teaching, the way you teach in China is that your Sifu will show you a move and you'll copy it, and he'll show you again and he'll copy it. And once you've sort of got it, he'll go off and let you practice. And you have to practice it for so many hours, days, months sometimes. And there's little tricks in there. Is like, if it's a moving exercise, especially with my teacher, he'll come and look at the floor, go, no, you haven't practiced enough, and he'll go off again. And it took me years to figure out that what he was looking for was trails in the dirt. That if I was doing it right, if I was doing the exercise, if it was to say Bakwa, Bakwa Chang, so walking in a circle, if I was doing it right, after it'd be a trail in the dirt of me walking constantly in a circle. Or if there was ones where I was going back and forth, there'd be a trail in the dirt. So he was looking for certain signs. The other teaching thing, going back to this 3 ones, you've got the chi side, the physical side, so it's the actual physical exercise, but the way they teach, they guide rather than tell you, teach. Then there is the theory and the feeling behind that exercise, and then the final part to that is the Shen, the spirit. So like, for those who know, sort of feel energy come in, or you get inspiration, you get a thought, or you get what me and my friend Terry used to call downloads, spiritual downloads, is that the teacher would, when you first, he would shadow the exercise. He would show the exercise over again, and once you get it, once you start mimicking him, he would add the theory and the benefits of that Qigong. Once you get that, then he would start actually sending Qi. Think of it like an update to a download or to an app. Is that and this is the difference between modern Reiki and Eastern Reiki, Western Reiki and Eastern Reiki. You have weekly empowerments in it's changing, but originally back in the 60s, when Reiki originally came in Hawaii and then went to the rest of the world, it was attunements. It's these one-off things. It was taught in a way that was most suitable for people at the time. It's all about adapting. So Reiki was taught in this certain way, but when you look at actual Reiki, and it's a mirror of Qigong and Tai Chi, is that these empowerments are done weekly. It's like a spiritual download. The person will send you energy of that exercise. So with my students, once they've got the exercise pretty much, and they understand the basics of the feeling, and what you feel is different to what I feel, and that's all good. It's whatever you feel is what you feel, but you should be feeling something. But it's also and that's the Jing, and part of the Jing is also the knowledge of what that exercise does, or the applications, whether that's healing, martially, or spiritually. And then I apply, so I'll be in front of you and you're doing the exercise, and I'll have that feeling of that exercise. Because for me, Qigongs are apps or downloads, but they're also like a tuning fork. When you hit a tuning fork, it vibrates. And each Qigong, each meditation, visualization, each mantra, sound vibration, or sound meditation, each mudra, each symbol has a different frequency. So when you focus on it, when you say it, when you do it, it's like a tuning fork. You hit that tuning fork and you're getting that vibration. And so the empowerments are tuning the tuning fork, or like hitting a tuning fork, sticking on top of a speaker. Maybe I'm the only one who's done this, but you stick a tuning fork on the top of the speaker and you raise the power in the tuning fork. It actually becomes more powerful. And that's what the Shun Qi Shen, Jing Shun Shen, these basic energy empowerments, Qi empowerments I've used the last 10 years, the word, because it was just easier for people to get. These Shun these flowing empowerments, energy flowing spirit empowerments, are about raising the vibration. And each Qigong has a different vibration. Hence why you put a strap and they become Tai Chi. Tai Chi is like a child of Qigong. It's a set of exercises. I just wanted to add that. I'll shut up now. Go back to Matt.
Well,
anything to add?
In the Qigong, one thing that I do like to state is everyone has done Qigong. They've never done it before in their life. They've always done it. Why? If you're not cultivating or moving energy, you're dead. You're no longer alive. You are feeding plants, and they are growing quite well.
Trees do Qigong all the time. The whole thing of Zhan Zhong, which means standing stake, stand like a tree. You stand like a tree, but it's an internal exercise. It's a Qigong. If I say everything, as you say, everything does Qigong. It's a shame Michelle faded a while ago. But animals, I love, there's certain things they do which are very Qigong. When an animal wakes up and it stretches, you see it stretch. It's doing yoga. It's naturally doing. These things are in the whole thing of Shaolin Kung Fu, the whole thing of Shaolin Kung Fu and the Taoist arts and the yoga, they looked within nature and saw these movements within nature, or saw these movements within a meditation, and then they expressed themselves in a physical form. That's what Qigong, that's what yoga is an expression of a vibratory energy. It's a physical expression of a vibration. But hey, what do I know?
We know what we know, and it's all from our perspective, which is beautiful because we get to share our perspective with everyone else. One thing that is very interesting is now with the speed of growth that we're going through, as you were speaking, it took years for a myth to sink into a culture. Today, a myth would be over in about 3 weeks. Why is that? That is because we have sped up the time frame of our movement. Before we were incarnating again in the physical. Physical takes a lot longer to do. If you've ever gone to the gym and built muscle, you can't do that in a weekend. If you can do it in a weekend, you're taking something you shouldn't. But the funny thing is through meditation, through Qigong, through the epiphanies that we've been going through, those are within a 3-week period of time. Your life has shifted 100%. That is the speed that we are, I would say, upgrading. But the way that I would say is integrating. Because we're here to have an experience. And we're integrating more information. With the World Wide Web, now we can understand how many cultures can be at your fingertips at any time. 100 years ago, I would have known about 5 cultures. And they were the 4 around me because I'd have mine and the 4 around me.
Yeah, totally.
Any further, it would be hearsay. It would be a story about someone else's culture. Now I'm getting it straight from the mouth. And I'm getting not only the positive, but even the negatives of them. Like you were saying that the Buddhists are known as very, very peaceful people. Well, I spent about 2 months at Angkor Wat. I beg to differ with you.
Well, it depends where you go. It does depend where you go. In India, the Buddhists, the yogi practitioners, yoga is, in essence, is part of Buddhism. Or the yoga, the yogis I knew in India, like I said, they did stick fighting forms, and it was like before then. I thought yoga was all about peace, or that was what's portrayed in the West, and it is, but you have to survive your environment. You have to know skills. And yeah, I promote peace and love and tranquility. But if you attack me, I'll use the universe against you. Because if you're foolish enough to attack me, then I'll do what I have to. Of course, I did have an attack with the pavement, and the pavement won. But sometimes that happens. Hence why I got black eye. Just for those who.
You were talking crap to the pavement. I know it. The pavement got mad. It's okay.
Yeah,
Were you judging the pavement? Was it the right color?
Yeah. Oh, I had anger at the pavement. Well, the funny thing is that Shun would shake his head because all the years I used to break concrete on my head, and I go and get a black eye. The only other time, I know. It's so many.
It finally got you back.
Yeah. Well, I've only ever had 2 black eyes in my entire life. This is number 2, and the other one was actually at an ice rink where somebody was all karate practitioners like this. There was a karate guy, and he thought he was pretty hot, and somebody told him that I did kung fu, and he challenged me. I wouldn't accept the challenge. And he kept challenging me, and he ended up keep pushing me. I said, look, if you don't stop pushing me, you're going to get hurt. He said, oh, what, are you going to hit me? I said, no, but you will get hurt. And he sort of looked puzzly, and he kept on, and he punched me, and I do a thing called iron Qigong, which is basically it's a way of activating certain parts of your body to become like steel wrapped in cotton. And he punched me in the face. He gave me a little black eye, and he broke his knuckles. So I thought that was a fair deal, you know. But it's the like action without action. It's violence without violence. The whole point is I refused to fight because I quite liked it there, and I didn't want to suddenly become the bad guy. And so I refused to, but I used that technique. So yeah, I've only ever had 2 black eyes. And
I can't say
6 years old. Hmm?
I can't say that. I was raised in the military during Vietnam War.
Whoa!
That may be why I'm as peaceful a person as I am, is because I was raised on base during a war.
Yeah.
I think there's a great profound magic to that, because like I wasn't raised on a military base during the war, but I was an extremely angry and violent child who would like blow up and bite his brother so hard there was chop marks for 2 weeks, and like just violent kid stuff. And I don't like violence. I don't really want anything to do with violence. I've played violence. I don't. I think that there's something that a lot of people in the spiritual community don't address, which is like they're running away from violence because of of what violence has done in the world, which is part of my whole thing of making cloth weapons, like cloth axes, or Bobby's got hammers, is so that way you can be violent. Because violence is a part of us. Violence is there. No matter what we do, violence will be there. So many people shy away from violence. And I studied martial arts in my early 20s because of this, because I was uncomfortable with the concept of violence, because I wasn't capable of dealing with the violence more than the actual violence itself. It was my relationship to the violence. So people don't address their relationship to violence, and they think that violence is it's this terrible thing. And I learned a very violent form of martial arts. There was a form of street fighting from Hawaii that was a culmination of 5 martial arts, where up until like the last 20 years, like as the end of your black belt test, you had to go and pick a fight in someone in a bar. They took you into a bar after your 8-hour black belt test, and you had to pick a fight and win the fight. This was like if the punch counter or the grab counter didn't work 5 times in a row in a street fight, it was not included in the system. It came about it was the late 40s, early 50s in Hawaii, right before Hawaii was part of the United States. So, and it was in a bad neighborhood, and it was 5 guys who got together, and they all had different backgrounds. There was a judo guy, a jiu-jitsu guy, not Brazilian jiu-jitsu, small circle jiu-jitsu. There was a boxer, a Shaolin guy, and Tang Sudo guy, which is Chuck Norris's style, actually. It's Tang Sudo, the style that he trained. So it was a culmination of those 5 things put together. So I studied the really nasty martial art. And now the martial art I want to learn, I don't remember what it's called. It's a Buddhist form, where if you hurt your opponent, you've lost, but your opponent's like taking swings at you, and it's one of those forms that you try and stay behind your opponent for as much of it as possible. So that way, so that way I can try and merge the 2 of them together into that synthesis that I see, that totality of like, sure, I can really hurt you if I want to, but I don't really want to hurt you. It's nice to have that skill set. It's nice to have the scientific understanding of magic, but at the end of the day, I still want to have that Taoist form in the back of my back pocket, so that way I can not hurt somebody. That's what I want to do. But if it comes down to it, then if I have to break their nose, then I have to break their nose. I don't want to, but I know how now. So I found that that's something really important. What are you going to say, Boggy?
No, I was just going to say, there's this interesting thing with people. I mean, martial art. Those 2 words are put together for a particular reason. The martial is the military side, it's the technique side, it's the practice side, the application. The art is the flow. It's about, non-martial artists think martial arts is all about fighting. A true martial artist will know that fighting is just the cherry on top of the cake. Is that the true understanding of martial arts is personal development. Shaolin Kung Fu, they're Buddhist priests. Most people seem to, it does make me laugh, is that, the these were the whole thing of the Northern Temple Shaolin will obviously correct me if I get it wrong, because numbers I sort of get wrong. I think it was the 14th century, but it might have been before or after. That Buddharama, who was the yogi Buddhist, came from India to the Northern Shaolin Temple. And the monks there were very fat and very unfit. And they did meditation, but that's all they did. And he in essence said, your unbalance is that you will never gain true spirituality until you become balanced. So he taught them yoga, but he also said, go out and study the animals, study nature, find the exercises, find the arts within nature. So they went and studied the nature around them. Hence why Shaolin Kung Fu, you've got crane style, you've got monkey style, you've got tiger. You've got all these different animals because they studied nature and drew these back. Because in the Shaolin side, you've got the Shaolin martial arts. But from the Shaolin martial arts, you've got the meditation, the spiritual side. So you've got the animal forms in Kung Fu. Now, Kung Fu, as most people say, it's Kung Fu. Kung Fu actually means sporting activity. So table tennis is a Kung Fu. Golf is a Kung Fu. Football is a Kung Fu. You know, we're all doing Kung Fu. But what China did, because they're like that, they accepted that the West see Kung Fu meaning martial arts. But now you go into the Taoist, and then those animals go from being martial application, virtuous of the different animals, which is no different to the Aborigines and the American Indians and other ancient cultures who become one with the sky and one with the eagle and all the different animals. They're gaining knowledge from those spirits. They're downloading information. So the whole thing, for me, martial arts always has been and always will be about personal development. The fighting side is just the cherry on top of the cake. It's just like the Qigong. Now, like a lot of people have heard of Qigong, they've heard of the Fa Jing, explosive power, where somebody will lightly touch somebody and they'll go 20 foot, or won't touch them at all and they'll fly and move. And everybody's focusing on that rather than that's just an expression of the essence of the exercise itself. Is that the Fa Jing is an expression that you've gained the ability to fully understand that energy. Hence, you can do Fa Jing, explosive power, ejaculation of power. It's the cherry on top of the cake, not the cake itself. It's just to get the focus right. Martial arts are cool. Everybody should learn martial arts. Everybody should learn meditation. Everybody should learn yoga. You should be able to stretch. You should be able to meditate, and you should do some form of qigong. Because basically, when I say martial arts, I'm talking about qigong, an energy exercise of some sort. And as Matt knows, you've got neigong, you've got qigong. Qigong will be physical exercise. Neigong is more stretching exercise. So there is a neigong set in Taoism, which is in essence a more moving yoga. There is Taoist yogas as well. There's a whole set of Taoist yogas that stretch the meridians. And again, when you start studying, like I said, Dantians and Torfield, there were Qigongs that do those six. There were stretches that do those six. Because it's all about incorporating everything, becoming you, whoever you is. There's many different ways to do it, and I guide people with my way, but I'll happily introduce them to other people's ways because it's all about finding your own flavour. It's finding your Tao. Mine, not Ethan's, not the Marshmallow Man's. It's finding your own personal Tao, and you do that by playing with others. That sounds redundant, but
By the way, is your
it's
neck
all
cut off
about.
now?
I can't hear you, Matt.
You can't hear me. Am I muted again?
No, you're not muted. You're good.
I
Okay.
can hear you.
I think Boggy's having troubles.
I just
I'm
think
always having trouble.
it's that line across underneath that big pond.
Yeah, done that. Well, the old water Qigongs. Yeah, sitting next to a lake, naked, drying wet towels. I've done that. And if nobody's ever knows what I'm talking about, I don't know.
Imagine Boggy naked. That's all you have to do. He said, "Sit naked." That's it.
Yeah, there's a whole Qigong set in China where you sit there in the winter next to a lake with wet towels, and they put wet towel on you, and you have to increase your qi, increase your yang, yang and jing technically, and dry the towel. The best I could ever do was almost dry the towel within about 8 minutes. The guy next to me was drying every minute, I think. There's all this steam coming off of him, and he's like, "Don't show off." But
That's why you couldn't do it.
But it's an expression. I know, it's cool. It's just the steam maker. But yeah, it's an expression of qi. These are all expressions of qi. You know, being able to, you know, use your voice to shatter a glass. You know, is an opera trick. It's an expression of it. That would technically be, well, we're using the yoga, so it'd be that would technically be a mantra, a high mantra, or a Fa-Jing. It'd be Fa-Jing that glass, using sound to shatter the glass. It's an expression of qi. This is all about expression. Learning to express yourself openly and honestly, and not hit the microphone with your lightsaber.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm here is to learn to express myself, right?
Yep.
Well, I hope so.
I mean, otherwise, why would we be on this journey of being a human?
So that way we can buy things.
Oh, buy things. That's it.
Yes.
At least that.
That's timing all wrong. We should have been Egyptians because we could have taken our TVs and our home entertainment systems with us into the afterlife. We picked the wrong fucking religion for consumers. We gotta get our shit together. Start believing in the afterlife so that way you can take your Xbox 360 with you to heaven when you die.
No.
And you can play your video games against God and see how you do.
Oh, that would be a big mistake.
Yeah. Pokemon Go in heaven. Oh, what's that one?
Yes, it's going to be four galaxies over, and
No, it's gonna be. You're just gonna find the really cool Pikachu in heaven. The really cool Pokemon are in heaven. That's just like that's where the rest of them are. You just gotta wait. Although I'm sure there's probably some pretty awesome ones in hell too.
I was going to say the ones in hell are probably a little bit more creative.
Yeah, we'll put it that way.
Well, saying, Matt, you were saying about 4 galaxies across. Oh, does that mean we get Pokemon Star Wars Go? Darth Vader! so,
There's a Darth Vader Mon.
Oh, is it? Oh, awesome. So, you know, use the dark side. Stay there. I think I've just found a Pikachu. So, yeah, Darth Vader going through the galaxy trying to find Pokemon. That would be a cool Star Wars movie.
You'll either have to find like light side Pokemon or dark side Pokemon, and if you run into Pokemon, you'll have to battle them with your light side Pokemon.
Yeah, Yoda.
I'm brilliant. I'm
Pikachu.
I can make
Yoda. Yoda. Use the Pikachu, you must.
Now, the only thing about Pokemon, why do they always just say their name?
Because it would probably cost more of them to talk more. just a guess?
I mean,
Nice to watch
they say the same word, and it's usually the name of the Pokemon.
Yeah. Pikachu!
Pikachu! Pikachu!
Do you guys remember Bill and Ted? The second one. What was his name? The two aliens. The two Martians, sorry. And they only could say one word. Thingy of the Galaxy had a similar that tree. Oh, that's a cool character. The one for the tree, he could only say its name.
Oh,
So
I know.
Everything
Yeah.
in the name.
Guardians of the Galaxy?
Anyway,
Groot. You're talking about Groot.
Yes.
His name's Groot.
Yeah, Groot.
Groot is awesome.
Groot.
You really had to have me scratch.
When I grew up,
Like,
yeah, I want to Groot.
totally, he's like the perfect Taoist. He's like, have you ever read the Tao of Pooh?
Yeah.
The Tao of Pooh and the D of Piglet? Like, it's like he's Winnie the Pooh in the Tao of Pooh. So to elaborate for those who aren't familiar with the Tao of Pooh, the Tao of Pooh is by an amazing author named Benjamin Hoff, and it's comparing the characters of Winnie the Pooh to different characteristics of your personality and relating them to Taoism. And Winnie the Pooh is the perfect Taoist because he doesn't have any preconceived notions. He doesn't walk into situations with ideas from other situations, so he's very much in the moment and very pure and childlike in his acceptance of Tao and acceptance of what's happening in the moment. And it's a very fun, lighthearted book that really clearly illustrates a lot of really good theories, and it's really good for kids. My mom read it to me because I was homeschooled and dyslexic, so I couldn't read at that point. I was like 8 or 9, I think, when my mom read it to me, and it was an amazing introduction to Taoism. I highly recommend it for anyone who has children who want to introduce them to Taoism because it's fun, it's lighthearted, it's really interactive with the authors writing stories about Pooh and Piglet and all the characters, but they'll also be having a conversation with him at the same time. So it's very lighthearted and fantastic. And so going back to Guardians of the Galaxy, yes, Groot is the Taoist in that group, because ultimately when you get into a group that size, you end up having to go into the archetypical representations of the beings. That's why Marvel movies are so great, in my opinion, for being new myths, because they're the new myths of our time. You know, Hulk is the uncontrollable desire and anger. Tony Stark, Iron Man, is that sense of intellect and what the intellect can do when it is allowed to run rampant and not checked with the other parts of the characteristics of the personality and be balanced. Captain America, I guess there's a new movie I haven't seen yet, so his character might have changed slightly, but generally he represents that good for the sake of good, unquestioningly good, because this is what you believe in, even if it causes your own destruction, which is another part of her personality that needs to be addressed. And then you have, like, Black Widow's character, so that side of yourself that just wants to be safe and fit in regardless of the cost to your sense of self and to your personality, and the hard cutthroat that ends up hiding under that mask of those things. So, you know, we all are seeking representation and explanation through archetype, and it's just a matter of how are you going to be drawn to that. It's the same with Star Wars. You know, Star Wars has the hero's journey perfectly illustrated in it, of something traumatic that takes you out of your comfort zone. Luke's, let's start with, I'm more familiar with the older ones, so let's start with the older ones. So Luke's uncle died. He's kicked out of his comfort zone. He then has to go out into the world and experience new things that he's never experienced that will cause him to grow and change and test his limits. And then at the end, he comes back. At the end of the 3 movies, he comes back having experienced all of the things that he needs to have experienced in his personal growth, with the truth and the understanding of knowledge that he has gained from experiencing both the light and the dark, and then he brings that back to the larger community, which is the New Republic. At least I think it is. I don't know. I haven't seen any of the new movies, so all my Star Wars knowledge is based. Future Star Wars knowledge is based on all the books that were written, which I guess they made null and void. So I don't know what's happening anymore. But the represent is that the story is still represented of the journey out into the darkness, and you can see that in A New Hope, Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. in that series, in that greater sweep of those things, because you see in the Empire Strikes Back, everyone is lost, everyone is confused, everyone is in a time of darkness. Han Solo's even fucking frozen. You want to talk about some cold darkness there? Put your ass in carbonite, you know. But by the end of Return of the Jedi, the darkness has been vanquished. The darkness has been cast from the land. The knowledge has been brought back to the people. The knowledge of the Force, the balanced Jedi, or actually, I don't know if he's balanced anymore because they made a new movie. But at that time, the balanced, the balanced fullness of the experience. So you see that represented again in that archetypal thing that we all need and we all seek, and that's why it's so powerful. And I think that's why Marvel movies are so successful, and especially Star Wars was so successful, was because it was so far out in the subconscious of things that we could actively relate to that it's pure. It's not tainted by the way that other myths are, like the Christian myths, for instance, and the mythos of Christianity and the mythos of Christ as the being that he's represented as in the Bible, and then also the other being that he actually was before the stories started to change around a little bit. We have a harder time listening to stories about Jesus being good and the things that Jesus went through because we have a large emotional charge with it that is long-standing and has been super prevalent in our society. So we are used to it because we never listen to the things that you hear all the time, because that's just human nature, as far as I've seen it. If you hear a noise all the time, if you live next to a highway, it doesn't bother you because you're used to hearing it all the time. So because you're used to hearing these parables and hearing these ways of thinking and these ways of knowledge presented to you in these standardized ways, it takes something like Star Wars that is so out in the open and so left field that you don't have a preconceived. There isn't anything that's being triggered for you. So you can relate to it on a different level, and there's not this resistance to the relationship that you would have if it was something that had a high emotional charge. So it allows you, so basically what it boils down to is your heart can be more open to it because your heart isn't judging it, having a concept about it, having resistance to it, a preconceived notion about it, because it's so pure in its essence that it's untainted for the conscious mind. So we see that, and also Lord of the Rings, another great example, because it's so far removed from our reality, it's so far removed from what we know, it allows us to embrace it more wholeheartedly because we're not going, oh, what's that?
That's not
we're
right.
not we're not judging. Say what?
Is it? Yeah. What's that? That's not real.
Yeah, what's that? That's not real. I've never seen that before. It's like when you go to the zoo and you're amazed by all the animals in the zoo, or you go to another country and you're amazed by the wildlife there. You know, it took me years I pay attention to the animals around me now, but you don't notice pigeons. You don't notice crows. I live on the Oregon coast. I didn't notice seagulls for a long time. I was ignoring that power in my life. I was ignoring that representation in my life because I was so used to seeing seagulls. I was so used to seeing crows. Crows are very big for me. Crows are a very powerful animal for me, and I didn't realize it for a long time because I was ignoring them because I saw them all. So as a personal metaphor for this, I was unable to absorb Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, in this case, the crow's magic that the crow was trying to offer me and teach me, because I was so desensitized to it. So that basically is the antithesis, in my opinion, of why certain movies are so successful and why they are coming forward at this time in the human evolution, is because we still need these things. We still desperately seek them. We're just not conscious of it. So I mean, look at all the people love Star Wars.
We're seeking it for a different reason now.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Our need for the myth has changed. We're in a place where humans have not been here in this round of human development before. I can say that for sure, because depending on who you talk to, humans have played this game before, and it didn't work out that well. So anyway, so this time through, so we need that access because the group consciousness is so closed off. It's so hard to get that little pillar of light through the chinks in the consciousness that it takes something that people aren't used to seeing. You know, look at Thor as a notion of the god of thunder. Like, how many people have researched myth now because of Thor? I got more into Norse mythology when I knew some Norse mythology, but it sparked my interest in Norse mythology to watch Thor and be like, I wonder what the myth of I wonder how many myths they're actually borrowing from. I wonder how they're being manifest. So the universe is trying to present us with new myths. It's trying to help us out and be like, hey, here you go. And we just got to get it a little more fine-tuned. And ultimately, it comes down to training people's consciousness, so it's easier to remove the jewels of the conscious from those things. The jewel of wisdom that Yoda has. The jewel of wisdom that is there to be offered by these things that because ultimately it's like the story of the Golden Buddha, where there's an invading army, and there's a Golden Buddha statue in a small village, and there's an invading army, and so they cover the Buddha statue with mud, so that way it won't be stolen. And then generations go by, and the mud is still on the, and everyone's forgotten that the Buddha was gold. And so one day, someone's sitting meditating on the knee of the Buddha, and some of the mud cracks off and reveals this gold Buddha underneath. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to shed the layers of mud that are over the light of our souls. So we're pretty, as Western culture, we're pretty deep in the mud. We've sunk. We've got a pretty good layer on there, so it's pretty hard to break through it. But there are things that can do it, and so I think on the bigger perspective, that's one of the great gifts that movies offer to the public. And I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I watch very few movies. I think there's a lot of movies that are very pointless. There's a lot of interesting things that I've observed. If you watch TV shows from like before the internet came along, or even a better example is TV shows that were going on while the internet came along, like a common show like Frasier, the show Frasier, which was fairly big in America for a while. It ran for about 10 years, and about halfway through, and I looked it up, I was watching it, about halfway through, the internet came along, and you can see the style of humor change. The style of humor becomes much more about the stress of the situation. You watch, like, there's some Britcoms that I like. Boggy, Are You Being Served? I'm sure you can't have grown up in the UK and not, or at least know of Are You Being Served. So, like, Are You Being Served is from, like, the 70s and the 80s. And they'll end a joke where the joke ends is before the stress. They imply the stress is coming, but then they end the joke. And as you watch, as the shows evolve over time, it becomes more and more about the stress of the show because we're becoming more and more closed off. They push, and now they make movies that are all about the awkward moment. The whole movie is like one painful, awkward moment. And it's because, and movies are getting scarier. And, oh, Matt, I think you're muted. Or maybe I just didn't hear you.
You probably didn't hear me. I was just saying that I can't stand those movies that are just one solid.
And it's because you're too sensitive. You're too open because that's what it's taking to drive that stimulus deeper and deeper and deeper. It's like, look at nudity. Just as an example, it used to be if you saw someone's ankle, holy shit, that was like full boob and like. I mean, during the Civil War, in the Civil War time period, so like 1850s, if you wore a low-cut dress, you were a whore. If your dress didn't come up to here on your neck, you were considered a whore. You were wearing whore's clothes. So look at how the stimulus has to keep being upped. You have to keep upping the stimulus. And now, like, girls are wearing so few clothes that it's the illusion of nudity. There's no clothes anymore. It's just a little scrap of cloth that gives the illusion of nudity. You have to keep upping the dose to get through the mud, to get through the unconscious. You got to feed people more sugar. You got to feed people more misinformation. You got to feed people more pain, more discomfort, more fear. Because like for me, I remember my dad telling me about my dad. If he was still around, he'd be about 70. Dracula came out when he was a little kid. So like 60 years ago, Dracula came out. Scared the shit out of him. If one of us watched Dracula, that version of Dracula now, it would be like a lullaby. Because back then, the stimulus, or King Kong, people were terrified of King Kong. Now we watch King Kong and, like, we would let our children, but if people would let their children watch King Kong, because cartoons are way scarier than King Kong is.
Yeah. Well, the special effects, technology's changed, hasn't it?
Yeah,
So
so you're upping the dose. I mean, what?
Right. We've been going for over 2 hours now, so the show-wise, I think we're going to continue this, but the show-wise, I think we should wrap up. So, Matt, is there anything else you'd like to say before we close the show?
Well, I would say the one thing that I would leave everybody with is what's more important, the energy or the matter? Or what matters more, energy or matter? And I'll guarantee you it's the energy. Perspective and attitude is 90% of it, and it's going to be your point of view. So listen to it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Well, like I say, the live bit will be wrapping up now. So thank you very much for the guest, the star of the show itself, Matt Brightside Evans. Also, the lovely Michelle Affinity. She had to leave a while ago. She has texted. She is okay. She hasn't crashed or anything. She's fine. And also the great, the wonderful, the myth gear man himself, my Q, Mr. Ethan Collins. Thank you very much. And myself, Seafood Boggy, aka Paul Brighton, or should be the other way around. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the show. Hope to see you again. Take care. Bye for now. Love, Chi and Shen from the way of conscious mindfulness. Bye-bye. Huh?